Good evening, folks. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a book that I have referenced many times, a subsection in the Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, The Grand Inquisitor. It's a story about what if Christ had returned in the 16th century. What if he was returned, immediately recognized by all of the people, and rejected by the bishops? What if the bishops already knew everything they needed to know? They sit down with him in a prison cell and explain with brutal sincerity that he said everything he needed to say. They don't need Christ anymore. People don't need his freedom. Then we're going to watch Do the Evolution by Pearl Jam. It's a fantastic music video confronting the horrors of existence that none of us can escape, that are inevitable. Two visions. One, the gilded cage of letting somebody else think for you. The other, the violent, terrible freedom of thinking for yourself. And in between those, the narrow gate that Christ spoke of. Can we walk it? Can we walk both? Because we're going to have to. None of this is historical footnote. We're not talking about the 16th century. We're not talking about the 19th century. We're talking about the 21st. Because this gilded cage that the Inquisitor is telling Christ about, that he's lecturing Christ, this is ESG scores. This is you'll own nothing and be happy. This is the control grid. It's the retirement of democracy to be replaced with expert management. And somewhere between the compassionate prison and the grinning death goddess, right there, that's where Christ is pointing, and that's where those who can need to go. So let's start with Dostoevsky's work. It's framed as part of a conversation between two characters, which is going to come up in a later quote. But I love how Christ is introduced. Christ, so many centuries had weak, trusting humanity implored him, crying with ardent faith and fervor, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not come?" So many long centuries hath it vainly appealed to him, that at last, in his inexhaustible compassion, he consented to answer the prayer. He decided that once more, if it were but for one short hour, the people, his long-suffering, tortured, fatally sinful, his loving and childlike trusting people, shall behold him again. It's not the second coming. It's not the second coming. It's just a return, a visit. And everybody immediately recognizes him for who he is. He begins performing miracles. He restores sight to a blind man who just wants to see Christ. He sees a dead child in a coffin, brings her back to life, and this starts driving the crowd mad. This is all happening during the Spanish Inquisition. The Grand Inquisitor hears the commotion, steps outside of the cathedral, and this is how he's described. He is tall, gaunt-looking old man of nearly 80 years, with a stern, withered face and deep sunken eyes, from the cavity of which glittered two fiery sparks. He has laid aside his gorgeous cardinal's robes, in which he had appeared before the people at the auto da fe of the enemies of the Romish Church, and is now clad in his old, rough, monkish cassock. His sullen assistants and slaves of the Holy Guard are following at a distance. He pauses before the crowd and observes. He has seen all. He has witnessed the placing of the little coffin at his feet, the calling back to life. And now his dark, grim face has grown still darker. His bushy gray eyebrows nearly meet, and his sunken eyes flash with sinister light. Slowly raising his finger, he commands his minions to arrest him. Christ is arrested. The crowd that was nearly going mad a moment before meekly bow down and submit to the bejeweled hand of the Grand Inquisitor, their master. Christ is taken in, he's locked in a prison cell, and a day later, the Inquisitor comes to visit him. It is thou! Receiving no reply, he rapidly continues. Nay, answer not, be silent. And what couldst thou say? I know but too well thy answer. Besides, thou hast no right to add one syllable to that which was already uttered by thee before. Why wouldst thou now return to impede us in our work? For thou hast come but for that only, and thou knowest it well. But art thou as well aware of what awaits thee in the morning? I do not know, nor do I care to know who thou mayest be it thou or only thine image. Tomorrow I will condemn and burn thee on the stake as the most wicked of all the heretics, and that same people who today were kissing thy feet, tomorrow at one bend of my finger will rush to add fuel to thy funeral pyre. Wert thou aware of this? Hi, Butterfly. And thanks for being here, Top Hat Jack. Where does this rage come from with the Inquisitor? Why does such a high official of Christ's own church so hate Jesus Christ? The Inquisitor explains, Thou didst so repeatedly tell the people, the truth shall make you free. Behold then thy free people now, adds the old man with somber irony. Yea, it has cost us dearly, he continues, sternly looking down at his victim. But we have at last accomplished our task, and in thy name. For 15 long centuries we had to toil and suffer owing to that freedom. But now we have prevailed, and our work is done, and well and strongly it is done. Know then that now and only now thy people have been fully sure and satisfied of their freedom, and that only since they have themselves and of their own free will delivered that freedom unto our hands by placing it submissively at our feet. That radical freedom that Christ offered, we've institutionalized it, we've packaged it, put it on a lunchbox, and now the people know exactly where to get it. They don't gotta worry their silly little heads about existential horrors. Would thou venture thither with thy vague and undefined promise of freedom, which men, dull and unruly as they are by nature, are unable so much as to understand, which they avoid and fear? For never was there anything more unbearable to the human race than personal freedom. Knowest thou that, but a few centuries hence, the whole of mankind will have proclaimed in its wisdom that through its mouthpiece, science, that there is no more crime, hence no more sin on earth, but only hungry people. Feed us first, and then command us to be virtuous, will be the words written upon the banner lifted against thee, a banner which shall destroy thy church to its very foundations. And the place of thy temple shall raise once more that terrible Tower of Babel. It is then that we will finish building their tower for them, for they alone who feed them shall finish it. And we shall feed them in thy name, and lie to them that it is in that name. Oh, never, never will they learn to feed themselves without our help. This is not about the 16th century. It's not about the Jesuits. It's not about the Roman Church. This was written in the 1800s. Let me look it up. Do I have the exact date here? 1880. It was written just before the 20th century, with the horrors of communism, with the horrors of scientific eugenicism, before all that took off. This is about ESG scores. This is scientifically managed economy. The Inquisitor. Who is he? Says Butterfly. He's never given a name, because he represents the forces of institutional management of freedom. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. So the Inquisitor goes on. He says to Christ, "Thou hast promised to them the bread of life, the bread of heaven. But I ask thee again, can that bread ever equal in the sight of the weak and the vicious, the ever ungrateful human race, their daily bread on earth? And even supposing that thousands and tens of thousands follow thee in thy name, or for the sake of thy heavenly bread, what will become of the millions and hundreds of millions of human beings too weak to scorn the earthly for the sake of thy heavenly bread?" Oh, it's great, Christ. You offer freedom, do you? You offer the wine and the bread that nourishes the soul. But what of the body? What about all those that fall short of your standards? Okay, so you bring a minority to heaven. You bring a minority to enlightenment. But have you met people? Most of them are vicious. What about them? They just all get cast into the pyre? The people will regard us as gods and feel grateful to those who have consented to lead the masses and bear their burden of freedom while ruling over them. So terrible will that freedom at last appear to men. For the chief concern of these miserable creatures is not to find and worship the idol of their own choice, but to discover that which all the others believe in, and consent to bow down in a mass. Think about that image of Lenin leading the revolution. Think about how at the core, the Gnostic core of communism is this desire to descend into unconsciousness. What the communists fundamentally rebel against is that freedom of choice. They want to descend into becoming unconscious workers. Think of the protagonist of 1984 and how miserably he struggles against Big Brother until the end, when he can finally look at Big Brother's face and see love, and he cries tears of joy that he has been broken into subservience. He has been dominated. Thou hast burdened man's soul with anxieties hitherto unknown to him, thirsting for human love freely given, seeking to enable man, seduced and charmed by thee, to follow thy path of his own free will, instead of the old and wise law which held him in subjection. Thou hast given him the right henceforth to choose and freely decide what is good and bad for him, guided but by thine image in his heart. But hast thou never dreamt of the probability, nay, of the certainty, of that same man one day rejected finally, and controverting even thine image and thy truth, once he would find himself laden with such a terrible burden as freedom of choice? Thy refusal to come down from the cross when people, mocking and wagging their heads, were saying to thee, save thyself if thou be the Son of God, and we will believe in thee, was due to the same determination, not to enslave man through miracle, but to obtain faith in thee freely and apart from any miraculous influence. Christ had just walked among the people. He performed miracles for them outside of the Inquisitor's prison. He brought a child back to life, healed the lame, brought sight back to a blind man. All those at Cavalry who ridiculed him, they all went to hell because he had too much pride in wanting people of their own free will to choose Christ, that he would not perform a miracle and lower himself from the cross. Behold and judge of them once more, now that 15 centuries have elapsed since that moment. Look at them, whom thou didst try to elevate unto thee. I swear, man is weaker and lower than thou hast ever imagined him to be. Can he ever do that which thou art said to have accomplished? By valuing him so highly, thou hast acted as if there were no love for him in thine heart, for thou hast demanded of him more than he could ever give, thou who lovest him more than thyself. Man's not that good. Most of them. Maybe a few. A few mystics, a few saints. Have you seen humanity? They're crap. They're garbage. And the price you asked of them was too much. Why should a soul incapable of containing such terrible gifts? Why should a soul incapable of containing such terrible gifts? The gift of faith, the gift of staring at horror and not blinking. These terrible gifts that you demand of people, Christ. Why should they be punished for their weakness? Didst thou really come to and for the elect alone? If so, then the mystery will remain forever mysterious to our finite minds. And if a mystery, then were we right to proclaim it as one and preach it, teaching them that neither their freely given love to thee nor freedom of conscience were essential, but only that incomprehensible mystery which they must blindly obey even against the dictates of their conscience. Thus did we. To paraphrase, if what you preached was blind faith in the good, for the sake of the good and for the love of the good, for 95% of humanity, that's an incomprehensible mystery. You might as well expect a dog to understand the rules of citations on an English paper. And so we, the church, have declared all of this a mystery. The mystery of faith. And it's not works. It's not acts. It is the divine revelation. It's the mystery. Going to church and getting baptized, you go to heaven. Don't ask about how, because you're not smart enough to figure it out. That's what we taught the people, and how could we do anything else? Human dumpsters, says Butterfly Ballerina. Did we prelates not show our great love for humanity by realizing in such a humble spirit its helplessness, by so mercifully lightening its great burden, and by permitting and remitting for its weak nature every sin, provided it be committed with our authorization. Pause for a moment. The sins are allowed so long as they're authorized. This is what Pride Month is about. Pride in any form of sexual depravity, so long as you don't take pride in those things which you are forbidden from taking pride. You can take pride in your sins, but not your virtues. For what then hast thou come again to trouble us in our work? And why lookest thou at me so penetratingly with thy meek eyes, and in such a silence? Rather shouldst thou feel wrath, for I need not thy love, I reject it, and I love thee not myself. Why would I conceal the truth from thee? I know but too well with whom I am now talking. What I had to say was known to thee before. I read it in thine eyes. How should I conceal from thee our secret? If, perchance, thou wouldst hear it from my own lips, then listen. We, the Church, the ESG, the World Economic Forum, those that administer this gilded cage, we are not with thee, but with him, and that is our secret. For centuries we've abandoned thee to follow him. Yes, 8 centuries, 800 years now since we accepted from him the gift rejected by thee with indignation. That last gift which he offered thee from thy high mountain when, showing all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them, he saith unto thee, all these things I will give, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. We took Rome from him and the glaive of Caesar, and declared ourselves alone the kings of this earth, its sole kings, through our work, though our work is not yet fully accomplished. They haven't won yet, they're still working on it, for our own good. Thou would have realized every aspiration man seeketh for himself on earth. Man would have found a constant object for worship, one to deliver his conscience up to, one that should unite all together in one common and harmonious anthill. For an innate necessity for universal union constitutes the third and final affliction of mankind. Let me translate that one a little bit. Live in the pod, eat the bugs. Become an ant person. Descend into unconsciousness. Just pursue your blind hedonistic pleasures. Don't worry, the nudge society will take care of everything. We'll make sure you work when you're supposed to, we'll put you on welfare when you're kind of useless, and we'll medicate you to death when that becomes necessary. You never have to think for yourself. You never have to suffer. Maybe we'll let you eat meat, maybe we won't. But you're never going to have to witness the cow in the slaughterhouse. And who can rule mankind better than those who have possessed themselves of man's conscience, and hold in their hand man's daily bread? Having accepted Caesar's glaive and purple, we had, of course, but to deny thee, to henceforth follow him alone, to abandon Christ and follow the devil. Oh, centuries of intellectual rot and rebellious free thought are yet before us, and the science will end by anthropophagy. For having begun to build their Babylonian tower without our help, they will have to end by anthropophagy. Cannibalism. Soylent Green is made of people. That shirt you bought off of Amazon was made by Uyghur slave labor. For having begun, right? But it is precisely at that time that the beast will crawl up to us in full submission, and lick the soles of our feet, and sprinkle them with tears of blood, and we shall sit upon the scarlet-covered beast, and lifting up high the golden cup, full of abomination and filthiness, shall show written upon it the word mystery. Under our rule and sway, all will be happy, and will neither rebel nor destroy each other as they did while under thy free banner. Oh, we will take good care to prove to them that they will become absolutely free only when they have abjured their freedom in our favor and submit to us absolutely. Freedom is slavery. Love is peace. Gradually, men will begin to fear us. They will nervously dread our slightest anger. Their intellects will weaken. Their eyes will become as easily accessible to tears as those of children and women. But we will teach them an easy transition from grief and tears to laughter, childish joy and mirthful song. You know, everybody back in the 90s and early aughts who just loved MTV. Anytime I point out the shallowness of culture, you're taking things too seriously. No, I think I was taking them exactly seriously enough. Yes, we will make them work like slaves, but during their recreation hours, they shall have an innocent, childlike life, full of play and merry laughter. We'll even permit them sin, for, weak and helpless, they will feel the more love for us for permitting them to indulge in it. We will tell them that every kind of sin will be remitted to them, so long as it is done with our permission. That we take all these sins upon ourselves, for we so love the world, that we are even willing to sacrifice our souls for its satisfaction. And, appearing before them in the light of their scapegoats and redeemers, we shall be adored the more for it. They will have no secrets from us. The surveillance state. It will rest with us to permit them to live with their wives and concubines, or to forbid them to have children or remain childless, either way depending on the degree of their obedience to us. Yeah, we're going to treat the human population like cattle. You don't care if the cattle sexually sin or not, but you do care that they breed upon your schedule. And they will submit most joyfully to us the most agonizing secrets of their souls. All will be, they will lay down at our feet, and we will authorize and remit them all in thy name. And they will believe us and accept our mediation with rapture, as it will deliver them from their greatest anxiety and torture, that of having to decide freely for themselves. An example of this is the Catholic Church blessing homosexual unions, which I say not to condemn homosexuals. I don't condemn anybody. That's not my job in reality. But the Catholic Church, Christian doctrine, does explicitly forbid it, amongst many, many other things, and I, just great sinner amongst the rest of you, the new church no longer condemns homosexuality, it blesses it. You're no longer living in sin. when you have relations prior to marriage. You're denied the agency of sin itself. The credo of the Assassin's Creed games is nothing is forbidden, all is permitted. Pope Leo would have described that as satanic. But now you can be a Catholic while also being satanic. Thus, you don't get to choose. You don't get to make mistakes. You don't get to fall short of a standard. You don't get to have free will. And all will be happy. All except the 100,000 or 200,000 of their rulers. For it is but we, the keepers of the great mystery, who will be miserable. There will be thousands and millions of happy infants, and 100,000 martyrs who have taken upon themselves the curse of knowledge of good and evil. That's what's being taken from you. That is what the Grand Inquisitor, that is what the ESG scores, that is what the World Economic Forum, that is what they want to take from you. They want to take away knowledge of good and evil. Let us become but dumb beasts again, happy and satiated while we are on the feedlot. Butterfly Ballerina says, "From whence art thou reading?" This is the Grand Inquisitor by Dostoevsky. And it's the story of Christ coming back, not as the second coming, but just to visit because his people missed him so much. In the 16th century, and getting arrested by the man in charge of the Spanish Inquisition and being interrogated. It was written in 1880, about the 16th century, but it's actually about the 21st century. That is what Dostoevsky saw coming. Peaceable will be their end, and peacefully will they die, the masses, in thy name, to find behind the portals of the grave but death. Nothing but death. You die and that's it. They lived their whole lives peacefully, happily, obediently, and then they died and that's it. But we will keep the secret inviolate, and deceive them for their own good, with the mirage of life eternal in thy kingdom. For, were there really anything like the life beyond the grave, surely it would never fall to the lot such as they. They're not going to go to heaven anyway. Might as well deceive them and keep them happy while they're on earth. And we, who have taken their sins upon us, for their own good, the prelates who actually realize the nature of reality itself, which is far more horrific. Reality itself is Christ dying on a cross. Not people getting sprinkled with holy water and going to heaven because they were obedient. These prelates are willing to look at that horror and embody it. And we who have taken their sins upon us for their own good shall stand before thee and say, "Judge us, if thou canst and darest. Know then that I fear thee not. Know that I too have lived in the dreary wilderness, where I fed upon locusts and roots, that I too have blessed freedom which thou hast blessed men, that I too have once prepared to join the ranks of thy elect. I believed in you once. I've walked your path. I've lived in the wilderness. I know the horror, and I chose freedom. But I awoke from my delusion and refused, since then, to serve insanity. I refuse to follow your insane plan, Christ. I return to join the legion of those who corrected thy mistake. I left the proud and returned to the really humble, for their own happiness. What I now tell thee will come to pass, and our kingdom shall be built. I tell thee not later than tomorrow, thou shalt see that obedient flock which at one simple motion of my hand will rush to add burning coals to thy stake, on which I will burn thee for having dared to come and trouble us in our work. For if there was ever one who deserved more than any of the others our inquisitorial fires, it is thee. Tomorrow I will burn thee, Dixie. Dixie, I have spoken. The narrative cuts back to the framing device, to the family members. One brother talking to another. That's you don't need the details on this. The one says, "Your Inquisitor does not believe in God, and that is all the mystery there is in it." To which the narrator says, "It may be so. You have guessed rightly there. And it is so. And that is his whole secret. But is this not the acutest sufferings for such a man as he, who killed all his young life in asceticism in the desert, and yet could not cure himself of his love towards his fellow men?" This guy, the Inquisitor, does genuinely love his fellow men, despite himself. Towards the end of his life, he became convinced that it is only by following the advice of the great and terrible Spirit that the fate of these millions of weak rebels, these half-finished samples of humanity created in mockery, can be made tolerable. This priest has seen too many sins. He's seen too much of humanity. He knows what humanity is. There's that book. I think it's called A Million Little Secrets. It's a book of what our Google searches tell us about humanity. That most of us are perverts. We're dealing with a crisis of mystery school knowledge being forced upon people that aren't ready for it. Much of what gets decried as Luciferian is mystery school knowledge that leaks into the public. Here, I'm going to give you a grounded example of this that we can all understand a bit more easy than esoteric mystery school knowledge. The realization that women in the dating market are not angels, that left to their own devices, women, statistically, generally, overall, will choose to be the part-time girl of a bad boy than the full-time girl of a good man. That's esoteric knowledge. And it's being pushed on 13-year-old boys who haven't, like, their balls haven't dropped. They haven't started building muscles yet. Their skinny little 13-year-old boy being bombarded with pornography showing the girls lusting after the alpha Chad muscle-bound guy. That they're not. They're not at 13. They can't compete with that. And realizing that at a certain level, at some level, all women want that. Their mother, their sisters, the girl they're crushing on. At some level, there's just this violent, passionate animal. The Inquisitor in the story had seen that. He had seen that again and again and again. The Manosphere has made quite an ado about how Marriage 2.0 violates the contract, but Marriage 2.0 is just kind of a result of the default animal state of nature of humanity. This used to be knowledge that was restricted to the mystery schools, to the initiates. You're not ready for this knowledge when you're just starting out. That's what the Inquisitor has seen. That's what George Soros has seen. George Soros has seen how easy it is to bump up an economy, to crash an economy, just by tossing a few rumors on the financial markets. And thus he writes The Alchemy of Finance, where he openly speaks about destroying millions of lives so he can make a few $1 million. And nobody does a single thing about it. What else is the Grand Inquisitor to do? He loves humanity in spite of himself, and so he must enslave them, because freedom is too much for them. The story ends with this. Having disburdened his heart, the Inquisitor waits for some time to hear his prisoner speak in his turn, to hear what Christ is going to say. He's diatribed against Christ. Christ hasn't said a single thing. His silence weighs upon him. He has seen that his captive has been attentively listening to him all the time, with his eyes fixed penetratingly and softly on the face of his jailer, and evidently bent upon not replying to him. The old man longs to hear his voice, to hear him reply. Better words of bitterness and scorn than his silence. Suddenly, Christ rises, slowly and silently approaching the Inquisitor. He bends towards him and softly kisses the bloodless 80-and-10-year-old lips. That is all the answer. The Grand Inquisitor shudders. There's a convulsive twitch at the corner of his mouth. He goes to the door, opens it, and addressing him, "Go," he says. "Go and return no more. Do not come again. Never, never." And lets him out into the dark night. The prisoner vanishes. And the old man? The kiss burns his heart, but the old man remains firm in his own ideas and unbelief. To which the brother that was listening says, "Ha! And you two together with him, you too." And the man that told the horrible story bursts into laughter. That is the Grand Inquisitor. And it's been years since I read it. And I had missed, well, must be 5-10 years since I read it. And 5-10 years ago, I didn't have such a clear perception of the you'll own nothing and be happy, of the Great Reset, the 15-minute cities, the control grid they're building for all of us. I didn't realize just how prophetic the story was. It's for your own good. God, Dostoevsky's a good writer. There's a reason I love him. But now I'd like to shift the second part of this. Although I'd like to pause. Butterfly says primetime TV, video games. Yeah, look at the Star Wars, the original Star Wars, and even the prequels, even though they were very flawed movies, were initiatory. The first trilogy was about how to live with horror. Luke Skywalker discovering his father is the ultimate evil, and forgiving him anyway. And the second trilogy, seeing how young, innocent Anakin can be torn apart in all different directions and descend into tyranny. Those were initiatory movies. Those were movies hidden behind the special effects and the adventure music. Was this narrative meant to make you think more deeply, to stick in the back of your consciousness, so that when you finally did encounter the dragon of horror, that you had something to sustain you? Now, the music video we're about to examine is not fully integrated. And I'm going to pull up the Tree of Life diagram. Now, there's a particular path that is popular for bright, intellectual, creative type of people. And that is, you start at Malkuth and Yesod. These are absolute requirements. So Malkuth, you grew up, that's the kingdom. You grew up in a first world country. You weren't starving. Your brain got to fully develop. But on top of that, Yesod, the foundation of culture. You grew up in an intact family. You grew up in a reasonable community. You get the basis of the tree correct. And you happen to be a prodigy of sorts. In the case, when we're talking about Pearl Jam, that would be a musical prodigy, a lyrical prodigy. You have a great insight. There's a lot of... The music industry is very controlled, don't get me wrong. But at least back then, you did actually have to be a bit of a genius. And so Hod, glory, that's Mercury, right? You got Malkuth is Earth. It's your financial foundations, your material foundations. Yesod is the moon. It's your emotional foundations. You have a good home life, a good culture you're inducted into. Hod is Mercury. You've got that magical scientific genius. And so what typically happens with that sort of a child is they then head to Netzach, to victory. They go straight to the path of mercy. The side on the left, Bina Gebra Hod, is the side of severity. Chukma Chesed Netzach is the side of mercy. So they go to victory. You learn to play guitar, and you have all these people celebrating you because you're playing guitar. You're so freaking cool. They go to mercy. Chesed. And what you find in our modern society, our reversed tree of life that's being built for us, is that Chesed is fake. Chesed is the Grand Inquisitor. He has material mercy, but not spiritual mercy. He wants the people to be happy by indulging in sin. He doesn't want to challenge them to be better than they are. Butterfly asks, where does she fit in the grand scheme of the Tree of Life? I don't know you well enough. I'd have to talk to you. I could help you trace your path on it. I will tell you that your goal needs to be Tifereth. Tifereth was Christ's goal. Tifereth is the solar plexus. It's what, when C.S. Lewis wrote about men without chests, Tifereth is the chest. It's the heart chakra. It's beauty. It's the solar king. It's balanced and expansive. How do you find out, says Butterfly? It's based upon the paths you've walked. And as you understand the tree better, you'll understand which paths you've walked. My path, due to the sod damage, is first I walked the paths of severity. I should have done the Hod, Netzach, Ches. That should have been my path. But I was a young man, very bullied, very, very bullied by teachers and fellow students when I was in elementary school. And with, I don't want to talk a lot about my family because, listen, I love both my parents. I don't speak to my father anymore, but I still love him. But there was a lot of generational damage in there as well. And so I had such a strong compulsion to ascend the pillar of severity. And after ascending the pillar of severity, after not doing the easy thing for me, the easy thing for me is to ride on my intelligence, to be Mr. Charming, to use the Venusian qualities that I have, to, I don't know, get some sort of high-paid, white-collar job. That would have been the natural, easy thing for me. That's the path that Pearl Jam took. Although they're musicians, not white-collar, but it's the same path mercy thing. I went all the way up through severity. I pushed myself at things I wasn't naturally aligned at. Pushed myself to join the football team, to join the military, to make something of myself. And then I had a total collapse when all of my Basically, when that Sarkeesian Effect movie blew up for me, absolute collapse of everything I'd tried to accomplish. Everybody I thought was my friend turned against me. I got zeroed back out. Hode to Netzach is the tower. It's the complete collapse. And so I began ascending the Pillar of Mercy. And once I'd done both, and started seeing the damage I had, the father wound, the mother wound, healing those, encountering my shadow, dancing with my shadow, I seem to have some pretty solid Tiferet energy, crucified between the opposites. Ballerine was bullied too, and if she dared to defend herself, she'd get in trouble. Isn't that the funny thing? Isn't it so fucking funny that, you know, these days they've got zero tolerance, which means the kid that gets bullied gets blamed. Back when I was in school, they started a peer support program, and the guys that were bullying me were the first ones to sign up for the peer support program. And I'm not saying that with bitterness. Like, I've got no animosity to any of them. But it's just these solutions never, ever work, because they ignore the nature of the thing itself. I think we're ready to jump in to this music video. Now, I'm so worried this is going to cause problems for the channel. I'm going to play a few parts of the music video in clips, but to reiterate where we're coming from. So, if you were a musician back in the early 2000s, you descended the Pillar of Mercy. Like, quite frankly, you had a soft life, right? You can kind of, you know, hard men make good times. That doesn't really apply here, but let's be frank. The guys in Pearl Jam, they've worked their asses off, okay? They did earn it. This is not to look down upon them, but they were very juvenile men. They didn't have Tiferet. They hadn't fully completed the heart chakra. And by the way, you don't need to ascend both paths. Only lunatics like me do, and it takes decades, so you should probably just ascend your normal path. But what they got to at Chesed. So Chesed, that's institutional mercy. That's the Catholic Church. That's the ESG score. The ESG score is the soulless inversion of what mercy is supposed to be. Well, you look over from mercy over to Geburah, which is, it's called strength there, but it's not just strength, it's Martian violence, it's dominance, it's war. It's not nice. And if you don't have Tiferet, then it comes as a massive shock. So, let's, listen, last time I'm sure this is fair use. Let's pause this music. Actually, I'm gonna have a quick bathroom break. Then we're doing the music video. back. So we're going to watch the video now, and there are a couple of things about this video. You know, we'll keep playing this. A couple of things about this video. Because Pearl Jam hadn't found the heart chakra balance, the video is imbalanced. You should note that the video is still assigning villainy to people when this is just the map of reality. It could be no other way. Specifically, they assign villainy to white, patriarchal figures. But despite that, again, they're not perfectly balanced. And Jesus, how old were they when they made this? Like 30? You can hardly expect it. That's not what we're focusing on. We're focusing upon the horror. Because horror is a part of reality. The Grand Inquisitor would take that horror away from you. Because it is terrible. The question is, do you have the strength to look that horror in the eye? And with that said, I'm going to turn that off. And yeah, we're just going to play it up here in the center. So yeah, I'll play it in portions. It's a fantastic music video as well. Yep, it's playing there. I'm a beast. I'm a man. I'm the first mammal to wear pants. I'm at peace with my lust. I can kill because in God I trust. Just evolution. There's that sexy bitch. I'm at peace with my lust. I can kill because in God I trust. So if you follow me on Twitter, in this stream so far, I've been speaking at a very high level of perception. I don't really see things as good and evil these days. I see things as action and consequence. However, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll notice that sometimes I am quite belligerent, you could say. In Spiral Dynamics by Ken Wilber, Stage 3 is the tribal level. It's the thug, criminal sort of level. Stage 4 is the rules. Stage 5 is achievement. Stage 6 is finding your true calling. And Stage 7 is integrating all of them. Realizing that all these stages exist, you still contain all these stages within yourself, and that people need to start at the bottom and go up. Now, one of the messages being put out there on media, and this touches back to what you said, Butterfly, about you getting bullied but getting punished for standing up to yourself. So, the current paradigm suggests that everybody else gets to take pride in who they are. That's a level 3 tribalism. Everybody else gets to be proud of their tribe. But if we are proud, if we defend our tribe, that means we're not a higher ideal person. We should all be at level 6, finding our true nature, our how does it affect you? Now, if somebody approaches me at levels 4, 5, 6, 7, I respond at 4, 5, 6, 7. But if somebody says to me that my tribe can defend themselves, but your tribe cannot, I drop down to level 3 and say, no, I also have the right to defend my life, to defend my loved ones, to defend my extended family. I am not only operating at that level, but I do have permission to operate at that level. I'm at peace with my lust. I can kill because in God I trust. So this is, Pearl Jam is probably operating at level 6 for the most part. Like, I mean, look at this brilliant video. They've got to be at level 6. Maybe just getting right up close to level 7. But they're still quite horrified at the fact that it's war. It's always been war. It's the evolution, baby. Yeah, Pearl Jam is the band that did this video. Just to clarify for you. Don't ask me what I didn't listen to them back in the day. I only found out about the song 10 years ago. But this video is about Geburah and Death. To just pull it up for you. Geburah is strength in warfare. And these guys went up the Pillar of Mercy. They didn't know about war and grinding and fighting and dying. And sometimes your best isn't good enough. That's the path of severity. And so this song is about how brutal evolution is. But it's coming from, and also Death, the hidden void, the abyss in between Tifereth and Keter, the crown, God's glory, the trinity of Kether, Bina, and Chokmah at the top. So, let's go back to the video. And this right here, this is the personification of evolution herself. The next lines are something about trading stocks on the day of the crash. Yeah, trading stocks on the day of the crash, yeah. It's her behavior. These are all things that happened. And she fucking loves it. That sexy bitch fucking loves the strengthening of the species. Look at that beautiful, evil fucking bitch. Can you look at the horror? Admire me, admire my home, admire my son, he's my clone. Now this is the part where I warned that it is, notice it's all the brown people are the victims, while the evil technocratic Romans and white men are the ones doing all the villainy. But it's just evolution, baby. I'm reading out all the lyrics I remember, Butterfly. Hopefully, running the fine line where I don't have to fight for this in YouTube court. With Eddie Vedder, I have no idea. I don't really know Pearl Jam. Listen, there was a guy in high school that liked Pearl Jam that I really didn't like, and so I just kind of defaulted to not liking Pearl Jam because of that. And it wasn't until Big L showed me this song, I said, Jesus, there's something here. There is something here. That sexy, beautiful, skull-faced bitch of evolution. The next scene, I think, is the most powerful. It also fits with the kind of anti-white narrative, this white guilt complex where it's a white girl, but it speaks to the eternal horror that you can't take away. Ants have meaningful social lives. Ants get really depressed if they're isolated from other ants. It's not projection. Increasingly, there's so many. The other animals are sentient. They know they exist. So fish can be trained to recognize their reflection in a mirror. Crows have language. Animals value their existence. They're not totally subconscious. They're not. Most of them aren't as complex of thinkers as we are. But don't imagine for a moment that they don't have meaningful lives. Anyway, let's do the scene. This one, yeah, I'm gonna turn up the volume just a little bit. I'm a thief, I'm a liar. There's my church, I sing in the choir. Don't look away. Beautiful transition. Admire my son, admire my clone. Because this is what it's all about. You know, I got a comment there. I was recently thinking about if World War III happens, and I'm 44, but there's a non-zero possibility I'll be called up for military service, and there's nothing that makes me want to retch more than the idea of fighting for Mark Carney. And yet, the only thing worse than fighting for Mark Carney would be Canada losing. And so all those men in gas masks having their bodies just torn to shreds by artillery machines, all these guys, Russian, Ukrainian, getting destroyed by drones. The only thing worse than having to fight in war is to lose a war. Even with a complete creature like Mark Carney running Canada. So all those men getting torn apart on the battlefield, just like that hill of ants getting smashed by that girl that didn't even see them. I'm not going to, for the sake of YouTube, I'm not going to repeat some of the horrors inflicted upon girls of the same age, 12-year-old girls in Britain who have been captured by the grooming gangs. Absolute horrors. Don't look away from it. This is reality. Nightly feast, those ignorant Indians got nothing on me. It's evolution, baby! Yeah, this video does post the white man as the great villain of history, when actually it's everybody and all the races that have always been doing this, and it's always been this way, and it's not going to stop. And I believe this is the point where we are at now. And this is where I disagree. I don't believe the end state of evolution is the complete destruction of the Earth. Thanks, Top Hat Jack. Don't know how much longer I can hold it together, though. We'll see. Pearl Jam reacts to this information while still trying to externalize the villain. This is the error in the video, that they keep trying, they make it Hitler is the villain, or the the Grand Inquisitor is the villain. This is what Dostoevsky was so brilliant about, is that the Grand Inquisitor becomes sympathetic. Dostoevsky makes the villain sympathetic, while also making him the strongest possible version of the villain he could be. Not like this modern cinema where the villain has excused his villainy if he had a bad childhood, but not if he's literally Hitler. Pearl Jam is not at the level of Dostoevsky, but they showed something very profound in that video. The horror. The horror. Let me go back to Tree of Life for a moment here. You see, what the utopianists are trying to do, they are coming from chesed. They're coming from a very unintegrated form of mercy. And they're trying to remove the colors. That red, that violent red of Geberah. The black limits of Bina, which is death and taxes. And these days, even the gray of Chokmah, the gray of wisdom, because wisdom it's not something you want to hear. It's painful. Wisdom says you can't have your cake and eat it too. We don't like those colors. Those colors involve blood and death and violence and unfairness, and the good guys don't always win in the end. People don't like those. They don't sell tickets at Disney World. The great error is trying to blame somebody else for those things. Oh, war? War is caused by toxic masculinity. War is caused by capitalism. War is caused by Christianity. I mean, the sheer irony of that. No, war is. War is one of the colors that we paint with. I've said in previous streams that visually, your optical nerves take in, oh goodness, I don't have the number. I'm going to make up the numbers, but they take in every second something like 10,000 bits of data. Tons and tons and tons of data. That data is then filtered by your brain into a sort of a holodeck that you exist in. The world you see around you, you're not literally seeing the world. Your eyes are seeing the world, and your eyes are reconstructing that data. Like right now, in 4 seconds, you are going to be aware of your nose in your peripheral vision. Do you see it now? Do you see your nose blocking off your vision right there? You didn't see it 10 seconds ago. You're aware of it because I pointed it out. Your brain had deleted your nose from your perception of reality. What you perceive is not a direct line on reality, it's your brain's simulation of reality. And that doesn't just go for vision. It goes for everything else. When you perceive evil in the world, it's because that evil is part of the palette of colors that you have to paint the world with. Meaning that the evil that you see in others is an evil you have within you. Which is fine if you understand you have the evil in you. Do you have that bloodlust? Can you understand the pilot in that video dropping bombs in the village and laughing his toothy grin afterwards and it all goes up in smoke and flame? Far Cry 3. Jeez, I wish I'd loaded this up before the stream, but it just occurred to me. Far Cry 3 is about... You start off the game as an entitled California shit stain of a human being who is out partying with his bros out in southeast Micronesia, doing drugs and partying because it's so cool, when your whole group gets kidnapped by white slavers. And to liberate your friends and family, your entitled shit stain California entitled just fucking piece of shit human beings, you wind up going native. You do a bunch of drugs, get tattoos all over your body, become an expert at murder. And there's one scene towards the end of the game where, like, you rescue the fifth friend or something who has a helicopter license. And you're like, okay, we need to get out of this compound. You fly the helicopter, I'll man the gun. And he's like, wait, what? He's like, just fly. Fly, asshole. And so he's flying, and you're manning the minigun. And you're just blowing up these things. They're exploding. You're like, hells yeah! And there's your 22-year-old college buddy flying the helicopter. Dude, you just killed some people! Far Cry 3 is an amazing game. Strongly recommend. If you want to see an example of what happens when you deny that you have these things inside of you, look no further than Trump derangement syndrome. Look no further than the radical left. Ooh, what's this? Blood Dragon? Let me, sorry, that... Alright, if you're... okay, I'm curious. Alright. Oh, wait, there's an expansion pack for it? Alright, I might look into that. I had no idea. The radical left completely denies hatred when hatred is one of the colors you paint with. By denying hatred, they force hatred into their shadow, into the things they don't acknowledge about reality. And part of the motivation for that music video we just watched was that the Pearl Jam band, these guys, they lived in Western civilization, Western society. They'd never had to kill an animal themselves. They never stripped it for meat. They'd never suffered. They hadn't walked the path of severity. And yet this whole society, as every other society that has ever existed everywhere, there's never been... Listen, bonobos murder each other just as much as chimpanzees do. They just don't do organized warfare. It's more matriarchal type of system. Every society is violent. Matriarchies, patriarchies, violence is endemic to existence within this reality. But you can hide from it in Western civilization until you can't anymore. And then they see the violence. They see the militarism. They see that evolution itself is eugenic. And to their credit, they didn't look away. They didn't deny. They did project. They said the violence is on the white man. The violence is on Hitler. It's on the Catholic Church. It's on the capitalists. It's on the Romans. Although they did also say violence is on the shark. Violence is on the dinosaur. Violence is on the meteor. Violence is on the silicon machine that we've brought into existence, which... Is it going to be companion or enemy? The comfort that the Inquisitor want to offer base, sinful, stupid, venial, short-sighted humanity. The Inquisitor had seen the horror. He'd seen death. And he wanted to save humanity from it. We, us prelates, shall wear the moral horror on our souls. And how dare you judge us for that, Christ? Whereas Christ calls all of us to look at the horror. The core symbol of Christianity is a moral atrocity. You can't eliminate evil. This is the symbol of Abraxas, the nature of reality, the god of this world that is both good and evil. You can't eliminate evil. That innocent young girl in the video stepping on the anthill, and that immediate cut to trench warfare from World War I. Yeah, those are the same thing. You can ignore it, you can refuse to look away, but then you're not individuating, you're just being a slave to the Inquisitor. That beautiful skull-faced bitch from the video, that, she is the pathway from Tifereth to Keter. That's the pathway of the High Priestess. That is the pathway of sacrificing your individuated self on God's altar and becoming a conduit for that eye that looks at everything from Keter. We can't eliminate evil, but I do believe that we can make a universe with more meaning in it, more beauty. Give me a sec here. Where is justice on the chart? Geburah to Tifereth is the path of justice. That green line with the S in it, that's justice. It's only one small part, and it's in the lower half of things. Justice is an institution. It's one of the mid-level grounding necessities. But it's not the highest state that you'll ever achieve. There can be no justice. There's for that anthill that got destroyed by the 12-year-old girl. For a 12-year-old girl exploited and abused and tortured in Great Britain. For that 9-year-old girl that got married recently in, I think it was Pakistan, and died from injuries on her wedding night to a man of my age that looked 15 years older. There's no justice. Justice does not even apply. Doesn't even begin to apply. And yet that is part of the palette of reality. Blitzer Blazing Noah says, can we overcome a grave injustice done to us? If so, is it through acknowledging that we ourselves have committed a grave injustice against others? I think you're on the right track. You know, everybody likes to remember when they were bullied in high school. When did you bully somebody else? two wrongs don't balance out. Justice is the scales. But the wrongs never balance out. The wrongs only accumulate. The question is, can you take this wrong and turn it into greater insight? Can you alchemize it? Can you turn lead into gold? Justice, Geburah to Tifereth. This is a very important path, particularly given how broken our justice system is these days. But let's consider the other four paths. The Hermit, Death, and the Devil. Hod to Tifereth is the Devil. The Devil is willing enslavement to sin or financing a car. Devil's a very interesting card. It's the chains on the two humanoid half demon figures. They're actually loose enough that they could easily pull them off their necks. They choose to be enslaved. You always choose enslavement to the devil, to hedonism, to pleasure, to whatever you're doing. You are choosing. Tifereth to Netzach, to glory, is death. Death is an interesting card. I need to look this one up. The death card in tarot has death arriving on his horse. There's a dead king. There's a child looking at death. There's a youth that won't look at death. And there's a priest looking at death. The child and the priest are not afraid of death. The king has been killed. The youth is terrified of death. And what was the other one I said? The Hermit. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi goes from Chesed to Tifereth. Obi-Wan Kenobi has true charity that he sacrifices himself for the sake of Luke's ascension. You can never undo injustice. And justice, it's lower. It is part of the solar chakra. But you can never undo it. That red line between Hod and Netzach, that is the tower. The tower is when you've built up your perfect life and God sends a lightning bolt to smash it and kick you out of the tower. And the two people falling out of the tower are the magician, which is male agency, and the priestess, female intuition. It's Adam and Eve being kicked out of the garden. Above that, Geburah to Chesed. That is strength. Between Mercy and Geburah, you know what? Homath pointed this out. I got to credit him. Obi-Wan's blue lightsaber and Darth Vader's red lightsaber. Chesed to Geburah is strength. Anakin Skywalker collapsed entirely into Geburah. War and domination. Obi-Wan maintained Chesed. He was a true self-sacrificial soul. And he walked the path of the hermit for Luke Skywalker to achieve Tiferet. And it's not until you've achieved Tiferet that you are finally ready for the great journey to the crown. To become that which observes. I worry about those who have been in the gilded cage for too long. The same way an animal, like there's a saying, if you take an elephant and you lock it up when it's a baby, you put you lock its foot up so it can't escape. When it's an adult, it's more than strong enough to break the chain. But it no longer believes it can break the chain, so it never even tries. And so people that have been living inside the Inquisitor's framework, who, by the way, this affects all sides, okay? The Trump derangement syndrome, where they think Donald Trump and MAGA are a bunch of Nazis, or people on the right that see a malicious agenda everywhere. People that they seek security through prepping. Not that you shouldn't have beans, bullets, and bouillon. I got plenty of these things right here, okay? You absolutely should. But that's not going to save me. One drone strike, one sniper bullet. Hell, not paying attention when I'm driving in the winter. I'm done like the rest of us. That is not salvation. The elephant has been taught to believe the chain limits it. Those who go too deep on obsessing over conspiracy theories, left or right, over thinking guns are going to save us, democracy is going to save us, social media campaigns are going to save us. They've externalized. They've projected their shadow upon something else. That is not the narrow gate. And that's what I wanted to illustrate with this stream, is that no, the evil that you see outside in the world is the evil within you. And it's never going away. Like red, the red lightsaber of Darth Vader, the red of Gebbera, that's never going away. Bina, the hard limits of death, of Saturn, of banking, that's never going away. None of these colors ever go away. The question is, can we use these colors? The Grand Inquisitor wants to dull all the colors. He wants to deny you agency. He wants to limit how many drinks you can have in a night, so that you never get drunk and potentially do something really stupid to screw up your life. With the greatest of Chesed mercy, he takes away your agency. And you are allowed, by the way, you are allowed to blame him for all the evils. He willingly takes upon that mantle. George Soros does not mind if you blame him for all the evils in this world. That's the mantle he took upon himself. The way to combat this is to integrate the evils, to admit that you are the villain. You contain the potentiality for villainy. You are on the same moral level as the butcher. And guess what? Being vegan doesn't save you either. Plants also don't want to die. And yet you eat them. Integration and confrontation with horror. Now let me try and catch up with some of these comments. Jiroku says, I'm talking to Agape right now. He's on the streets. I assume that's a streamer. I don't know who that is. Butterfly Ballerina says it's sad. Life is both a comedy and a tragedy. The whole point of the Tree of Life is that it contains all the colors. It contains the colors of tragedy and the colors of comedy. And that this is what reality is made up of. The rules of reality. You don't get something for nothing. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. You don't get a high without a low. Well, I've seriously struggled so much throughout my life with questions like, back in my 20s, the question that always bothered me is that you don't get character growth without suffering. And I'd sit around. We've all got complaints about reality, don't we? I mean, I've got a long list of complaints about reality. And yet, I'm not sure I could design a better system. You know, is this the worst of all worlds? Is this the best of all worlds? Can I even imagine a different world? I mean, you can imagine in a pocket a world that's a little bit better. Like, Star Wars is a little bit cooler than my life because it's all happening in a pocket. But the difference between Star Wars and Harry Potter, and no offense if you like Harry Potter, it's just one of my pet peeves. And you could say the same thing about Star Wars, so it's Star Wars isn't any better, but the difference between them is that Luke Skywalker genuinely suffers, while Harry Potter, you know, all the pins are set up to fall over exactly where he throws the bowling ball. So it's a little bit too cute for me. And you could say the same damn thing about Star Wars. Oh, this is good. Scowls McJowls says, sharp teeth are either in you or of you. In the middle is hell. No, in the middle. In the middle is the crucifixion of opposites. It's in the middle that you feel the sharp teeth in you, and you put the sharp teeth in others. That's Tiferet. That's where the heart chakra ignites, and you are finally ready to begin the process of walking through death, of looking at that hot, skull-faced bitch and treating her as a lover. You're not a flower, you're a killer. You can be both. Actually, I want to tell you, you remind me of something specific. How many of you have played Star Control 2? In Star Control 2, there's a race called the Pekunk. It's I don't even know how. No game like it has ever been made again. You all need to play Star Control 2. The Pekunk are a bunch of space hippies who are also really good at murder. And they've got a particular battle maneuver where they spin their ship in a circle, spraying out death from every angle, and they call it a death blossom. The space hippies have the death blossom. Be the space hippie with the death blossom, who's unafraid of dying. The Pekunk are actually a pretty good understanding of where we need to head as a species. You are both flower and killer. And yes, Blazing Noah, we are all the shadow. The shadow is thou. Thou art the shadow. The shadow is not something to fight. It's not something to hate. It's something to integrate and use when appropriate. When somebody tells me that because of my skin color, I don't get to have tribalism, but they do get to have tribalism, that's when I say some very offensive words. Shairuku, you gotta send me a link to that. I have no idea what it is. The 1994 film is a guilty pleasure of mine. Which film are you talking about? Hell ain't a bad place to be. That's a good. That's pure Gebbera, man. That's pure Gebbera. That's grinding. That's being the sort of guy that wins. That's solid. He who dares wins, and God hates a coward. Be ye hot or be ye cold, if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out. Yeah. I mean, we're pretty deep into esotericism, into mystery school right now, but you actually read the Bible, you actually read the mystics, so we're not we're not too far out to left field. Butterfly says, but it's got goodness too. Do you mean the flower of life, the tree of life? Absolutely it does. It absolutely does. I don't feel like the question is good or evil. The question is meaning or collapse. Right now we're at a really weird state as a species where on the verge of post-scarcity. But post-scarcity is dangerous the way a trust fund is dangerous. First of all, there's actually no such thing as post-scarcity. There's always scarcity. Like, we could take post-scarcity and we could have, 20 kids by 10 different fathers and immediately turn post-scarcity into scarcity all over again through sheer childish irresponsibility. Or and see, okay, the level 6 is going to say, or we could be responsible and only have one child. No, we need to expand, and we still need to defeat. We still need Geberah. We still need... Some children will be born defective. They'll be rapists, murderers, pedophiles. Some percentage will be that. And those ones get culled. On national television, preferably. Star Trek doesn't just mean endless replicator rations. It also means radical responsibility for those of our society that do not follow the rules. But that's a form of evil that I'm pretty happy with living with. It'd be really cool. It'd be really cool, Butterfly, is if we deliberately engineered a society where more of our meat came from free animals that we hunted. A free life followed by a quick and violent death. That'd be pretty cool. I'd like that. We're people are still claiming that Trump is Hitler, so we're nowhere near close to that. But that would be more meaning. That'd be more excitement. And less suffering, I think. We're always going to have suffering. We're always going to have blood, broken bones, bodies that were once whole smashed to pieces and dying for stupid frickin' reasons because drunk teenagers were driving on the weekend. We're always going to have that, and we should not try and stop that. We can't stab it with their steely knives. They just can't kill the beast. But we can add more meaning, more depth. Jiroku says, one thing about Harry Potter I respect there is, as someone I knew experienced, he was shut under a stair closet. God, I hate child abuse, man. That's another thing you're never getting rid of. You're always going to have children that are victimized by their parents. Blaze Noah says, who is they? They sound like an extreme version of Van der Vogel, Hitler Youth, The Shadow, Leo. Sorry, I'm Not sure what you mean there, Blazing Noah. Top Hat Jack is going to have 12 children with his second cousin. And I'm like, hey, nothing wrong with second cousins, man. Oh, God, I would love to discuss post-scarcity with the Jolly Heretic. I love that guy, man. He, you know, he's always, like, wearing wigs and shit. Like, man, I vibe with that, okay? Like, I'm a little bit on the, is this guy a fancy dresser or is he mentally ill scale? Pretty sure that's why my ex broke up with me. No, I would absolutely. I love the Jolly Heretic. That guy is brilliant. He's solid. Good for him for getting a PhD too. Jeroku says Mark Passio claims it's false scarcity in some regards too. Throw out a lot of food that could be repurposed technically, as I reckon his. Man, I got really mixed feelings on Mark Passio. I think the guy has shadow possession. I don't, man, I don't want to talk shit about him. Mark Passio is too certain that he has everything figured out. It's like he's 90% correct, but he's 100% confident. And then he gets angry when people don't follow his prescriptions. I mean, even if he's 99% confident, he thinks he's 100. So there's my criticism of him. That's also a criticism I apply against myself. I do my best to try and create useful things. I respond to things in my environment. This this stream was partly inspired by a disagreement I had with a friend. And she might look at this whole stream and say, no, it's completely unfair that you personified me in this way. Which is why I never mentioned her. I am nobody's judge. I am not the final boss. I am a guy that reads a lot and perceives a fair amount, and I try and share that with you. So I do think Mark Passio is getting hoisted by his own petard, but that's not a condemnation of him. Aw, Butterfly said she cried more when her bird died than when her dad died. You know, when Cassie died, I cried like such a baby. My father hasn't died yet, but on the off chance he sees this, this is not disrespect. I think your dog dying is like a child dying. My parents are going to die someday. I've made peace with that. Noah was on the space hippie death flower topic. Wait, which Noah are we talking about? To go back to Mark Passio for a second there. I've seen Mark Passio talking about the post-scarcity, Star Trek, etc., and I've also, like, listen, I ran into a guy that had the most idiotic economic opinions I'd ever run into. Which was like, well, we'll just all make couches for one another. Outside of that idiotic conversation, he's a good martial artist. He's a pretty solid dude. Not a shithead. But anytime you discuss economics with him, he turns into the biggest shithead ever. It's actually led me to suspect that economic understanding might be like a unique mental talent. Sort of like, I don't have perfect pitch, okay? I've got terrible pitch. But I do have perfect color. My eyes are amazing at balancing color. I can balance color between cameras, like, it takes me 30 seconds to do it. I've got perfect color sight. And so I think this guy's just blind to economics. And I think the same thing might be true for Mark Passio, that he's got this intuition, which at the high level it's accurate, but at the mid level it's really stupid. And there's probably some ways in which I'm positive there's a lot of ways that I'm really stupid in the mid level. Aww. What sort of bird was it, Butterfly? For every finger we point at others, 3 more point back at us. Thank you, Blazing Noah. That's brilliant. And here's the point. It also holds true for the Grand Inquisitor. It also holds true for Donald Trump and Mark Carney and the WEF. Every finger you point at them, there's 3 more pointing at you. And actually, you know, guys, what I'm going to do, I'm going to end this live stream right now. And then I'm going to start a second live stream after I go to the washroom. And we can keep chatting on there. But Blazing Noah, God bless you. You just gave the perfect ending to this stream. For every finger you point at others, 3 more are pointing at you. And the way you disempower the other. If you really hate Donald Trump and you point at him for being a tyrant, then what are the 3 fingers pointing at you for being a tyrant? How are you being tyrannical? If you want to disempower your enemy, if you want to destroy your enemy, I'd like to destroy Mark Carney. I don't like what that guy's doing to my country. I don't like what he's doing to my province. And the way I disempower him is largely through ignoring him and paying attention to things that build me up, things that build my family up, things that build my audience up, and things that build Alberta up. Develop the capacity to look at horror. And then choose to look at what's good. Colonel Kurtz had it half right. Make a friend of horror, but also make a friend of beauty. Carpe futurum tene traditum, cave deus videt. We are going to jump over onto the post-stream chat for everybody that wants to join. Thank you for joining me tonight. I hope it was useful. Aurini.